Thank you very much, Dean Chang, and thank you all for coming out here to this beautiful venue. When we met a few months ago at the strategy meeting for the Executive Advisory Board, AI was a topic that was mentioned as discussion. And one of the things the Dean challenged us was, how are we as FIU and the Chaplin School going to address the issue? What is it that our students need? What is it that our teachers need? And what is happening in the industry? And so today in this fireside chat, you're definitely going to hear from close friends of mine who have been in this journey with me. Prior to joining Subway as president of Latin America, I spent 25 years in the finance transformation space and implemented from analog to digital when I was at Deloitte, from ERPs like SAP and Oracle to now machine learning, and then the first inklings of AI. And so we're definitely going to focus on a broad spectrum of questions, but we're going to go back to the Dean's message of how AI is transforming the hospitality industry, where are the areas of focus, and also that human touch. Because the one thing I can tell you, as much as you've seen in the media and how much you've seen in reporting, yes, AI is a very hot topic. We have to adapt for it. But I just want to pause you and always remember and think back. When I was a young man and the desktop computer came out and that first Mac computer came out, I can guarantee you I can pull articles that said computers are taking over the world, jobs are going to be lost by 1990. Then when the big ERP system, the enterprise risk management systems came out, computers are going to take over, jobs are going to be lost by 2000. Then about 5 years ago, there was the phenomenon of blockchain. Blockchain is going to take over, et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully what you're going to hear from the panel is the challenges we face with all these innovative technologies, how it impacts our students, how it impacts the workforce, and most importantly, where companies should focus, especially in the hospitality space. Because the one question that nobody answers in those articles is, who's going to pay for it? And it is expensive. So with further ado, I'm going to introduce my panel. I'm going to bring it up here, and I'll let them introduce them and give a little bit about their background, and then we'll dive right into the questions we have. So thank you for having us.
First, I want to thank you for letting me know these were high chairs, so I didn't wear a skirt. That was like the big win of the day so far. So my name is Brenda Cucci. I'm delighted to be here. I know George for many years. I worked for Accenture at the time, and he was at McDonald's, and he was my client, and he was one of the better clients I've ever had. Very tough, but very fair, so that was great. My background is, I want to say 30 years in technology, but you know I'm not that old, but it's about 30 years. So I have been everywhere, HP, Cisco, Accenture. So I've been at all the big technology firms, been at the big consulting firms. And I love what George said, because technology is important, but in this space specifically, it's not going to take away the human element. By the virtue of the word hospitality, you need to have that human interaction. So AI is a phenomenal technology, but so is cloud computing, so are the ERP systems, so are mainframe computers, so are the desktop computers. All of those technologies are great, but technology is for humans to use to be more efficient, to make economic benefits for corporations, and I'm excited to be here, and that's my background.
Kevin. Kevin Wutzler, Senior Vice President for Revenue Management with Interval International. You could say I was born into the hospitality industry. My mom was a 34-year employee for Delta Airlines, so I learned all about hospitality at a very young age. I spent 5 years aimlessly in the banking industry. I don't know how that ended up, and then found my way back to hospitality. Worked for cruise line for a couple of years, and I hate to say this, but in about 2 weeks, I will have been with Interval International for 35 years. So it's hard to think that I took a summer job turned into 35 years. And in that role, I've done a lot in terms of frontline stuff for several years. I was also out in the field doing sales, and then found my way back or into revenue management by working with developers who are designing flexible use timeshare programs. So if you go and buy a timeshare with Marriott, you're buying points, not actual weeks. And I was a big part of that transformation in the industry back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So my background is really hospitality. I've been on the front lines, I've been behind the scenes, I've been consulting throughout that time. And I can tell you a big part of that journey was technological advances. So back when timeshare started, I know timeshare has somewhat of a stigma attached to its name, but back in the day, people would buy a specific week and they would go travel there and they would use that week. And then advances came along and they started to do more flexible things with floating programs. And then that required a little bit more technology because now you got to know who's coming when and so forth. And then that moved into these fully fungible currencies, which are points based. And the technology to deliver those have been transformative through the industry and have really brought it to where it is today. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the advances that we've made within Interval around the customer service area and how that has really affected not only our employees, but our customer satisfaction as well.
Jose.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I'm Jose. I'm from Chile. I'm an urban planner, background, and I live in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley. My journey starts in the hospitality industry with food trucks. I finished my master's degree at Berkeley, and one day I was walking through the street. I found a food truck street market, and I realized this is incredible. Like, why don't we put more street food truck markets all over the place? So I just approached the guy that was running the food truck market and say, hey, how do you find locations for these food trucks? And I say, well, I travel I spend the whole day in the car trying to figure out locations. So as an urban planner, I asked him, well, I can help you with that. Let me put some data. This was 10 years ago. That conversation ended up in an algorithm that I create for that company. And that company became the largest food truck company in the States. This is California, with markets from Sacramento to San Diego, right? That journey doesn't stop there. Like, we realized that we had something important that we could offer to QSR companies, right? To McDonald's, to Subway. And that spin-off today is called Hitmap. And right now we operate and we help, let's say, QSR companies around the globe, banks. We are operating in 21 countries already. And yeah, like Subway is part of our clients. And yeah, that's how the journey pretty much ends. After that, I've been teaching classes, a class called Alternative Urban Futures in San Francisco State University. As a part of that, trying to rethink the city from the data perspective. And I think that, yeah, thank you for the invitation. I think the topic that we're going to discuss today is incredible. Yeah, so many changes that are going to impact our realm, our urban environments, our city, our real estate locations. Yeah, so thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you. Great. We'll get started. So the first question, and we're going to bounce one question to each panelist and we'll let them chime in, but we're going to start with Brenda to my right here. Fantastic. Let's start by exploring how companies are leveraging AI to gain deeper insights into guest behavior, personalization, at a large offering scale. What have you seen, and what would you address the team to? Let's talk about a little bit your and I experience. So especially in the customer loyalty space, right?
Yes.
So you and I were working together at McDonald's, and they bought 2 technology companies, and especially in the loyalty app, right? That you can order and pay, but the whole customer loyalty aspect and that personalization. Give us a little bit about that.
So one of the things that was remarkable in McDonald's, for all of its, goodness, badness, depending how you look on it, it's a real estate company, number one. and the technology that they are always investing in is really pretty remarkable. When they started looking at automated speech for the drive-throughs, that was very interesting. And that was, it allowed their people to spend more time in the actual, stores, doing the right things, the French fries, making sure everything was clean, and it took less time for the employees to spend doing that. So that was excellent. They also did a geofencing technology where if you were driving and you were within a certain store, it would push out, hey, come and get we see that you had a Big Mac in the last 2 weeks. Here's a coupon and you can, get an extra thing of fries. And that's all from the data that they were able to collect, which was, analyzed by AI and whatnot. So those are just a couple of examples.
Yeah, and at Subway, just to build on that, what we're doing is we're actually, and you'll see throughout this whole panel, the biggest challenge that corporations are going to face is, number one, it's very costly, and we all live in a world where you have to build a business case and you need a return on your investment, right? And so in the case of Subway, we're investing the usage of AI, but we're very specific, especially in the loyalty. This new generation, the millennials and the Gen Zers, they really enjoy personalization a lot more than my generation. I'm not going to date myself, but you can guess it. And so they're on their phone all the time. And so we have tools, machine learning. I know a lot of people really have jumped to machine learning and AI, but machine learning is that first step into AI. It helps build that rhythm to then allow you to throw these new advanced tools at it. But these engines, actually, these algorithms are actually able to identify that, hey, Jorge, you came by here last week, you ordered this sandwich. I've got a great deal for you for an offer of X, Y, and Z. That is all driven by these tools because the ability of them to crunch through this data in a manner that creates that personalization is impressive. Absolutely. However, I still need humans to make the sandwich. I still need humans to take care of the guest. So it's that combination. You're going to see a dichotomy by companies picking the spots of where they really want to invest. And so that's another area I think, as a follow-up, and again, I don't know if Kevin or Jose, you have anything on that. I know we were having this conversation on site location in Chile 2 weeks ago, and the question was asked, hey, Jose, how do you use AI from that aspect? Do you mind sharing a little bit that the actual AI you're using and how you're teaching it, and it just doesn't turn on from one moment to another and spit out all the answers? Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So basically, what we do at Hitmap is we combine a lot of variables, right? We combine demographics. We combine and demographic. When I'm saying demographic is age, amount of population, density of the buildings. We combine the distance to competitors. We combine traffic for sure, cannibalization factors, right? So all the data that could be available is going into an algorithm, and then of course that algorithm is weighted and in order to find the best result. What we have been learning is sometimes even in products like let's say in company like say Subway, we're not talking about the same product. We have different types of products, right? So products. Let's say the drive-through people is not the same people that's going on a daily basis walking down to the corner because the drive-through is more like suburban people, right? So or people that moms that go after the school. So it's a totally different demographic. How we can refine our offer to them is different than how we work in an office environment, right? The hours of operations are different, right? Because so every deliverable is different. I think that right now with AI, we have the capacity to be extremely specific location by location, right? Our latest addition to that is using cameras, right? Trying to be super respectful with the what is the limit where we are pretty much identified. We're just trying to define age and and female, male, like in order to see and understand if the people is happy or is sad, right? We're not saying, oh, this is Paul, this is Christian, or this is Jose, right? Like we're just trying, okay, this is the amount of men that are arrived, that are going to your store, they're going happy, they're going sad, because AI can right now recognize what is the perception in their face, right? So if you add that on top of what I was describing before, you have a super powerful tool, right? Like you're not blind about who is your clientele, you're not blind who is your customer, right? And you could perform or you can change, also incorporate that in your supply chain, in the design of your products, right? Because it's different when you have just males that want to go for a, I don't know, big foot-long cheese sandwich, right? And that you have stores that just have salads, right? Like, it's different. So right now that there is an opportunity for be extremely specific and also create that loyalty that you mentioned, right? Because I think that hyper loyalty or hyper specification is one of the buckets that AI has more potential.
That's a great answer, and that leads into one of the follow-up questions we have to the first question, which was, how do you balance all this technology with privacy concerns and data governance? And I'm going to throw that one to you, Kevin, because you and I mean, having come from the hospitality industry. By the way, there's a gentleman here who I actually worked with when I was 15 years old, so I won't mention, but we worked together at a great hotel called Sonesta.
I've heard those stories.
Yes, you've heard those stories. But how do you balance that, especially you being with Marriott and in that space where you have a lot of data information, privacy information of consumers? How do you protect that? How do you govern that so that the AI doesn't go crazy and information goes everywhere?
Yeah, and I don't have a fully loaded answer for that. I know the question was coming, but I will say that we're really early in the journey as it relates to this highly targeted segmentation, getting the right offer to the right person. Marriott Vacations does have a lot of governance, a lot of oversight, and so we are looking at that. But we are, and I'm going to be happy to talk to you about some places where we are doing some pretty exceptional things in terms of call center, revenue management, those types of things. But as far as marketing goes, we have really just started to begin that journey. We have tremendous amounts of data on our customers because they're members. So this isn't just, Johnny Rando out on the street. They have a history with us, and we have a lot of data on these folks. We know where we've sent them in the past. We know what product they own. We sell a diverse portfolio of travel products. We're not just a timeshare exchange company. We're one of the largest cruise generators for Royal, for Carnival, et cetera. So we've got all this data. Unfortunately, it's in disparate systems currently. So we're actually we're about to complete the next few weeks a project to bring all of that data together into a data lake. And I can assure you that our corporate counsel has been along that journey with us because we are very sensitive to that. And some of the other things that I'm going to talk about in the call center, have some sort of big brother connotations, and we're going to be dancing around some of that as well. And we're much further ahead in that area. So I don't know if that
No, absolutely.
answer, but that is the answer.
And I'll give you some examples from my past experience, whether it be Burger King. So number one, in Europe, in Latin America, there's strict privacy laws that all these companies have to abide to. So even before AI was around, all those protocols and procedures are in place. The issue with AI is the ability for it to process and analyze this data and create this personalization. The next step, right? Companies do not want to have a data breach. They don't want to be on the front page saying Subway's information on all its customers who use its app is now in the public arena due to some hacker who broke in. So they have very strict compliance procedures. The challenge with AI is making sure that it adheres to procedures. And again, as you pick the locations of where you want to invest the AI, you will layer that governance structure into it to prevent it and be compliant. So we're going to move on to our next.
Just go ahead and add real quick, and that is an important point. So 4 years ago, we actually went through that process because the EU legislation is far stricter than it is in the U.S. And because we're a multinational company, we operate in 90-something countries. We actually went through and just basically layered everything in at the highest, most stringent level, which requires us to dump data after 3 years. And there's a whole litany of things that we can and can't do. And we also had to build systems so that if George calls me and says, I don't want to deal with you anymore and I want you to get rid of my data, we can do that at a basically a flip of a switch.
Absolutely. Great answer. So then, Brenda, back to you. You're up to bat. All right. By the way, Brenda's a great baseball fan. So as automation becomes more prevalent, how can organizations preserve the human touch and emotional intelligence that define great hospitality?
So this question I knew was coming. So I want to start with saying that, I didn't talk much about the company that I just started. The intention of that company was, how do my clients activate and implement the goals and objectives they have for their company? And the reason I start off by saying that is, if management and the executive team are not clear about what their intention is to use AI with, and they don't articulate that to the employees, there's going to be a huge mismatch, right? So all the employees out there now that are fearful that AI is going to take over their job, they're fearful of that because they don't know what it is, right? So they need to understand what AI is, how it can help them individually do their job, right? Jobs are not going away. We've talked about this. I've talked with so many of you. I've gone through every iteration of all the technology platforms in the last 30 years. You are still going to need the human people, right? So management and the executive team need to be very clear about what's the intention and what are our business objectives for using AI. AI can't just be this fabulous buzzword. Oh, we're using AI, we're going to spend millions. To George's point, you have to have a return on investment. So if you're going to invest millions of dollars to understand, get your data, collect your data, house your data, clean your data, secure your data, you better have a good return on investment, and you better have a plan. You better have a business plan. So how do you keep that human touch? Make sure your employees understand how AI is helping the corporation achieve their business goals and how it's going to help them do their job better. AI is about convenience, and it's about efficiencies, right? And the efficiencies come from cost savings, allowing me to do a better job at my job. And what better place than the hospitality space? So I know who my customers are, and I know how to, make them happy when they come and see me, when they're checking in or they're, ordering their sandwiches. So education,
That's a great point. And for example, we lived in Chicago, and I know Amazon opened this store.
Yeah.
Think of it as a 7-Eleven with no humans.
Not a one.
You would walk in, you would pick your stuff, and you walk out, and it would charge you automatically. There was a moment you'd use your phone when you walked in, and as you grabbed these things and put it in a basket, you bagged it, and the moment you walked out, it charged the phone. Actually, that store is now closed. Why? Again, a lot of the complaints was they were missing the human experience. But that was a learning. The challenge, like the question says, how do I balance that? So I'll give you a great example that was recently released in one of the news articles is company, and this will feed right to what you're doing on call centers. A company invested significant dollars on an AI that accompanied its call centers to help them answer the questions. So based on all the questions, they do an analysis of all the questions they receive on a monthly basis. And they felt that the AI could automatically answer 80% of all the questions and then focus the difficult questions to the humans. So they paired the AI with the human for about a 3 or 4 month period. And when they first tested the results of their humans, it was very low. They implemented the AI, they got better surveys, they got better results. But unfortunately, the AI had to go through an upgrade. So I had to bring on the AI for about 2 months. What they noticed from that period that the AI was accompanying the humans, after the AI went down, the human response rate and efficiency increased significantly. So they figured out the humans were learning as the AI was teaching. What did that company do? They shifted their methodology. Now every new employee that comes into that call center is being trained by that AI. And when he's ready to go, they let him fly, be free, go handle all the questions. And their call center efficiencies have improved tremendously. So that's where I tell you where companies are learning still. It's very young and early in the stage where they're balancing out where to invest, where to use the AI, and where to focus. I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit on the cost and
Blow my instrument on the whole stuff. No, it is pretty amazing because we have actually we're kind of a forerunner in the space for call center application, and we started in this journey literally 7, 8 years ago with some pretty basic stuff that ultimately evolved into machine learning, and was pretty basic. We were recording calls, and we were also recording the actual screens as the agents were processing calls, and we were using humans to manage and listen in, and we were also obviously our team is partially commission based. So when we would have somebody that wasn't performing, and believe me, that's very much a partnership because our agents want to earn more. They want to do well, and we hire people that are friendly and that are outgoing, that they're in the hospitality industry. So they want to do better, and so that it was kind of basic. And then if we saw somebody's scores were down, we'd bring them in, we'd walk them through calls and so forth. Pretty straightforward stuff. Well, then we started to introduce some other technologies, and it really started to become game changers for us. And we're now, and at first there was a lot of hesitation because the team was thinking, well, AI is going to take my job. It wasn't AI, then it was machine learning stuff, which is, preceding that. But they were all convinced they're all going to be out of a job in no time. Well, over that time, we've actually staffed more people, but that's a whole different story. And we have a highly distributed workforce. They're not in a call center. They're literally 100% work from home. And we are using technology to help the agents. And it's pretty amazing the stuff that we're already doing, and there's more to come that I'll share with you. But some of the primary things that we've spent our money on are voice inflection, things like that. So the calls are being monitored, feels big brotherish, right? It feels like, oh, every call they're listening to me. Well, it's not I'm listening to them, but AI or machine learning is listening to them. And they're listening for stressors. They're listening for different keywords. And if we sense there's a problem, a supervisor will come in on that call and help guide it. The other thing that is this goes back to geofencing and everything else. Remember, we have a tremendous amount of data on all of our members. We know if they've called in recently and they've got a unit on hold or they were looking at something. And so we're starting to advance those calls right at the outset. Oh, are you calling to book that Orlando unit you had on hold? I can help you with that. And it doesn't even route to an agent in particular. But it's these things that machine learning has been really effective in helping us with scripting, helping us suggest next best action to the advisor in flight on the call. The person's calling up looking for X. By the way, when somebody looks for X, they're also generally interested in Y. So suggest that to them in the call flight. So it's upsell opportunities. It's also bringing together that full experience for the customer. There's new stuff that's coming out as well. We work in South Florida, so we have a lot of non-native, English speakers here. We also have call centers in Singapore, Mexico City, UK, and some other smaller ones in country and EU. But the new technology that we're looking at right now is accent reduction. It doesn't change the personality of the person. It doesn't reword what they're saying, but it does soften and lessen accents and is directly in flight. So when we have a non-native speaker who's servicing, for instance, we're flowing calls all over. So when UK is, the day is winding down in the UK, they're actually picking up calls from the US to help, because we're demand balancing our phone calls and all that good stuff. So and if you've talked to anybody from England, right, it's hard to understand what they're saying. So it's really been helpful for the Americans with that. No, just kidding, just kidding. But these, we don't have that in place yet. But these are the types of things that are really going to add to the overall experience, the customer journey, create better efficiency, and also make our associates more successful. All through this journey, we've seen consistent increases in our customer satisfaction rates And almost maybe more importantly, we've seen consistent increases in our associate satisfaction scores as well, because they recognize that it's helping them deliver vacation and great experiences to our members. So
That's great. And I hope that helps answer one of the questions that I had here, which was, with frontline staff voicing concerns about being replaced by AI. I don't know if you all saw an article came out when the AI boom was. They listed the first 5 job roles to be eliminated. I think it was first was cashier, next was truck drivers. I don't get the truck driver one yet. Still trying to figure that one out. But it went down the list, and yes, there are a lot of our entry level positions. But yeah, many of these people are concerned about being replaced by AI. I think what you're seeing is companies are trying to figure out where the AI empowers the employee to improve the company's bottom line. Yes, eventually the AI will get smart enough and there'll be further gains, but we're still young in that journey. I think the question we'll focus on in the end is really how our FIU staff can really use this, our employees, our staff, our teachers, use this tool to prepare themselves for what's coming. And we'll dive deeper into that one. As we go through this, again, Kevin, we'll start with you, and then Jose, we'll jump to you after. As AI capabilities continue to evolve, organizations are increasingly turning to data-driven insights, and I know both of you have a lot of experience in this, to guide high-level decision-making. How is AI-driven analytics being used to influence strategic decisions like pricing, staffing, marketing, or product development? Give us a little bit of your experience.
yeah, so we operate a non-traditional hospitality model. So we are an exchange company. So what does that mean? That means that on January 1st, I have no idea how much inventory I'm going to have available for our members through the balance of the year, because I rely on members to provide us with inventory. So if you own a timeshare in Hawaii and you want to go to to Vail skiing, I give you a different, some other member's piece of inventory. So before we even get to what I call traditional revenue management, which is what's the right price for that piece of inventory, we first have to make a reasonable assumption on how much inventory we're going to have, all the way down to the unit type at a market, by date, etc. So we actually, years ago, I was talking, here with Brenda about her days at IBM. We have SPSS, which is IBM's advanced analytics tool, that helps us greatly with forecasting. It's not quite to the point where we would like, because what we really want to do, that when I get inventory may not perfectly align with when somebody actually wants to book that inventory. So if you look at Hawaii, booking horizon for that is 8, 9, 10 months in advance. You look at the fall in Orlando, it's like 3 or 4 weeks, right? So if I'm not getting that piece of Hawaii inventory until 4 months in advance, I've missed an opportunity to satisfy a customer. Where we want to be is to be able to know with a high degree of certainty that that piece of inventory will arrive in time to satisfy that customer's request. So we're doing a lot of work around that forecasting. And SPSS has been a valuable tool for us. There's a lot of granular stuff here that doesn't, I don't want to go into. We don't have time. Probably I'd screw it up anyways. That's why I have really good people working for me. But the point I'm trying to make is, but we see that some of these applications, some of the things that AI is going to bring in the future will enable us to do a much better job of that forecasting. We do a good job now, but we're going to be able to do a much better job. And then the other piece of it has to do with transaction channel management. We have a variety of different ways that we distribute inventory, and making that inventory available in, channel X, Y, or Z at the appropriate time can, dramatically impacts our occupancy, RevPAR, things like that. And so we see a lot of stuff in the area of optimization. IBM obviously has a tool, Cplex, that we've looked at, but we think we can do a better job internally with that.
And again, I think what you'll hear is, even though, again, we're using these technologies in all these spaces, again, nothing Kevin has yet to say, or Brenda to say, hey, we're using this tool and I downsized my organization by 50% and I brought a reduction of headcount, so I'm making a lot of money. Again, these tools right now are accompanying a lot of the workforce. And we'll say a little bit about how we're using AI, and feel free to elaborate, not too much, but how we're using it with Subway and picking, like you said, some of these locations that are different. We have different location models, right? Drive-throughs, standalones, inlines with drive-through. and how you've brought in the AI to really focus us and hit that white space and say, I need to be in Avenue A and Street B. Right.
Yeah, no, I think that on one hand, I'm not a. I think you touched a really interesting point at the very beginning that you said that you mentioned ROI. I don't believe that AI is going to replace too much hands on the hospitality industry because now. So let me elaborate a little bit this. I had a conversation in California with a food truck owner a couple of weeks ago, and I think that I talk about this, like, how do you see AI coming? I say, okay, yeah, I'm waiting for the Tesla robot to start making my burritos, right? Okay, so that Tesla robot is gonna cost $100,000, right? And it's not gonna be trained for making burritos in the next 4 or 5 years, right? And so it's not cost effective, right? So I'm thinking that particularly on the food part of the hospitality industry, I think that the hands are still going to be difficult to be replaced. That's my observation, because there's not going to be return of investment, right? The robots are going to be there, and you're going to see videos on YouTube how the robots make any kind of things, right? But they're going to be too expensive, right? Even though in San Francisco now, probably if you have been in San Francisco, you can drive in Waymo. So I can go from the airport to my house without talking to anybody, right? Because the car can go autonomous, right? But it's not affordable for everyone, right? So they're still expensive, and still they have bigger cameras around, like they're doing a fantastic job, but they're not still like a commodity for everybody, right? So I think that's on one hand. On the other hand, I see like we're entering into space, and talking about Subway again, I feel like we're entering into a space that the silos and the interior of the company are going to be kind of disappearing, right? What is marketing? What is loyalty, like we mentioned? What is operation, right? What is sales, right? Like before, we used to have these silos very clear, right? But now I think that they're going to start more blending to each other. And this is the reason why, because now we have too much information, and everyone has information from the other, right? So someone in operations, like talking about the cameras, right? Like someone that operations running the camera knows more about what is the customer than the guy in marketing that is doing the activations, right? That probably is an outsourced company, right? That is providing the same service to a different other companies. But the guy in operations is an expert, because he knows, and he has a dashboard that knows exactly who is coming, what time the guys are coming, and what they're consuming, right? So I feel like that is going to be a blend, and companies are going to need a lot of data literacy, right? Because with AI, I would say everyone is going to be able to have a Ferrari but they have to drive this stuff, right? Like they need literacy on that. So it's not like, hey, here you have Claude, hey, you have Perplexity, hey, you have ChatGPT or Copilot. You have to learn how to use it. You have to learn how to make the right prompt. You have to learn how to activate. You have to clean your data before. So I feel like, yeah.
So that's a great point. One of the questions that was asked is, what internal capabilities should teams have to fully take advantage of the AI, especially in analytics? Let's go with analytics. What do you think, Brenda? What sort of capabilities these teams should have? You mentioned that point of how silos will probably break down, and we're starting to see more collaborative teamwork. Absolutely.
Yeah, what I was thinking about is you guys were talking is, who better than the employees that work for you in this space to come up with applications for AI, right? If I'm the person that's the front desk manager, or I'm trying to sell the most activations for timeshares or whatnot, if I know the capabilities of AI and I know what the company's objectives are, better profitability or more sales, whatever that may be, what better person to come up with hey, if we used AI to do this, I think we could help meet those objectives. So you want your employees to be educated on AI and the capabilities. So I know I said this before, but if you're the management team or you're the executive team, what is your objective with it? Which means you better know what the capabilities of AI are. And then you want to make sure that your employees are very educated and familiar with AI and all the capabilities, because then they're going to use that and it's going to be way more efficient. It's going to be way less costly once you already have it, after you've invested in it. But so I think that,
Well, that's a great point. I can tell you, all right, I got to walk a thin line here. So I can tell you at Subway, we're a Microsoft Office house, and we invested over 6 months to use Copilot, and we gave it to a group of departments. And then all those leaders in that project came back and reported to us. I can tell you out of the 6 groups, only 2 departments said we can actually use this tool to our benefit and identify the opportunities. They actually came up with the rules of engagement and how to use this tool. And then we decided, okay, for you 2 departments, we're going to pay for this license again. And actually the results have been very good. So we did it backwards, right? Because there was an article by Dean Chili that talks about the 2 different AIs. One is where you teach it, and the other is where it learns from other AI, right? Copilot is one that you teach it. And so that requires a human to teach it. So that requires a lot of involvement and engagement. So that's great answers to a point. We're going to move to the next question. And Jose, it starts with you. In today's rapidly evolving landscape, emerging technologies are reshaping the hospitality industry at an unprecedented pace. What emerging AI technology do you believe will be game changers in the next 3 to 5 years for the hospitality industry?
Can give us the stock information too, so we can go invest in that right now.
Take receipts.
Yeah, step, but
3 to 5. I don't know if you have heard about quantum computers. I think that 3 to 5 years is something reasonable to start seeing impact on that area. Right now, the math part of quantum computers is made, but not the physical part. So let's say for the ones that watch Oppenheimer, let's say that the formula that Einstein made is done, it works, but nobody has been able to build a bomb, right? So Google has some progress there, that they're building a quantum computer. What a quantum computer is going to do basically is going to be able to resolve an encryption for Bitcoin, for example, right? That now seems impossible. It's going to be able to do that, but it doesn't probably necessarily touch hospitality. I'm just saying, like, the computers are going to be extremely powerful, right? So they're going to be able to deliver way more things. The cars are going to be extremely more intelligent, right, than right now, right? So if you can see cars driving by themselves in San Francisco, you are going to see more stuff like that, right? So I feel like, and that on top of AI is going to give way more a muscle that is going to be extremely powerful. That is I see as a like emerging technology. So I think that's 5 years. I'm not seeing before that for sure, because that somebody has to build the bomb, right? Like that's one thing. In the meantime, I think that we're going to see, though, some type of buckets where AI is going to start kind of making a lot of impact. The first one is pretty much the field where we are at Hitmap, is prediction, right? So right now, like, we have been doing machine learning for the last 10 years, right? And if you understand the concept, machine learning is part of AI, right? AI is like a global thing. And now with generative AI, I think that prediction is going to get better and better, right? So if we were able to predict 82, it's going to be, now we are in 87, and tomorrow we're going to be 92%, right? So everything connected to prediction is going to be more accurate, right? We're going to incorporate weather, we're going to incorporate other type of variables that before were impossible to incorporate, right? So that's one area of focus. Hyper personalization, like we mentioned. I think that that's for sure something that that's going to be a lot of improvement. So you're going to arrive, hopefully, to rent your car, and you're not going to have to wait an hour 30 for getting your keys, right? So the guy's going to see you coming and is going to give you the keys, and you're going to take your car from the airport, taking 2 minutes, not more than the trip, right? So that's an area of that a lot of impact, hyper personalization with your customer. And I would say a third one is robotics, right? I mentioned the Tesla robot, but robots are gonna come, right? You can see robots on war right now, kind of playing some roles. And I think in hospitality, robots are gonna start playing a really interesting role. I'm not talking about the bots, right? Like the bots that when you start texting and you get the same dumb response. I'm talking about like because I think that's something bad, right? Like taking in the wrong direction. But I'm feeling like it's going to be a lot of things that are going to be automatized, right? The cars, for example, right? And yeah, the Tesla robot seems yeah.
Those are all great areas. Like definitely there going to be some job redundancy in the restaurant space and the hotel space, right? There'll be less front desk clerks. There may be less, people frying certain foods. They're already coming the combination of the AI with the robotics and improving these machines. They're figuring out how to make this cheaper and accessible to a lot of companies. So we'll see a little bit of that, but there's always going to be a need for somebody to oversee it. So yes, there is a lot of opportunity in those spaces. We're starting to see some examples. I think there's a new restaurant in New York City that operates with one human and a robot, and it makes all your orders. However, first month it opened, it closed down, I think, like 40 times throughout the month because the robotics wasn't right. Now they've gotten through it. I think it's called Crank or Crink. I can't remember the name. I'll find out for you all. But that investor is willing to test out and figure it out. And to the comment of Waymo, right, those self-driving vehicles, Google has invested $11 billion in getting those Waymos to work, right? And that goes back to my point. And by the way, they're coming to Miami. They're already here. They're actually learning how to drive in Miami, and I think, wow.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, exactly.
They work in San Francisco, but when it gets to Miami, it's going out about all the Latin. Yeah, way. So we're going to move on to the next question. And again, this is for all of you. As customer expectations continue to evolve, demanding greater personalization, speed, seamless experiences, AI is emerging as a key enabler of meeting and exceeding these rising standards. How can companies stay ahead of these shifting standards? I think elaborate a little. How can companies really focus, and this is something we debated, we had a call before, elaborate a little bit of where you think your companies or your experiences, where they're betting, right? We can't bet on everything. Like at Subway, we're not going to bet on HR robots. We're not going to bet on AI answering all customer complaints. We're not going to bet on personalization. We're not going to bet on everything. Companies have to pick their battles. Where do you see us? Where do you see in your experience them picking their own choices?
So I'll give you a quick example. I do a lot of work with the Department of Defense. And after this, I'll have to kill you all for the information I share, but that's a different conversation. Right now, it is so much for the Army about optimization of their facilities, okay? And I know this isn't completely related to hospitality, right? But it is in a way, because the Army's intention is we have got to do a better job with our facilities, because our people live there, their families live there. And the facilities are not, they're HVAC systems, the mold in the buildings. And sensor data can provide so much information to make decisions to send out the trouble ticket to the HVAC system that needs to come and take care of it. You have Army soldiers doing that kind of work right now. That's not what they are in the Army for, right? They're in there to defend our country, and they are, using clipboards to write down data. We have the capability to do that kind of stuff. So data collection on sensors and being able to proactively and, to your point, predictive analytics is absolutely, the three that you said, I think that's the biggest one. Quantum computing is going to cost $1 gazillion for a long time. I was at IBM. I know how much it costs. Nobody wants to buy it right now. So anyways, that's
Kevin.
So I just going to sound a little weird, but Marriott is a publicly traded company, so I can't actually tell you exactly where we're putting our dollars because that that hasn't been discussed at that end. So, but if I were to hypothesize where we might be spending our money, from my perspective, Kevin Wutzler, not Interval or Marriott, I think the biggest gains are focusing on the customer experience. And so what does that mean? That's the associate who's greeting somebody at the front desk. That's somebody who's answering that phone call and being empowered and having the information available to them to meet that customer's expectations. And as we all know, in the hospitality industry, I don't know, there's 40, 50 people in here. We all probably have different expectations every day on everything. And so having that insight at a very granular level, hyper personalization, revenue management's near and dear to my heart. So I do think that there is a lot of runway to make additional gains in revenue management. And it's not just with, increasing your occupancy or, getting better RevPAR year over year, but it's through transaction channel management. It's through timing of offers and things like that. And then finally, I think there's a lot of opportunity in improving our associates' lives as well. So I mean, I really think it comes down to those things. It's the customer, it's the full journey, it's the full experience. And at the end of the day, all of our companies are made up of people, and we got to make sure that they're happy too.
Absolutely, and I'm going to skip you, Jose, so we can stay on time. But just to give you a quick comment, what Brenda was talking about at McDonald's, we were putting in an AI FP&A tool to forecast our sales around the world. And when we started, it was in the low 80s. We got it to as high as the mid 90s. But I can guarantee you right now that tool is freaking out. As you all know, there's all these changes going on in economic models around the world based on a new presidency. I can guarantee you the AI has no clue what to do. It has no idea. And if you look at the recent results from all the companies that are publishing their quarterly results, they're all coming off forecasts. Because it doesn't matter how great the AI are, you got to teach it. And guess who's stepping in now to take over for the AI to figure out how these models work? The humans are back. So again, there's still a lot of learning curve, and I think you'll see that this will continue to evolve as we go down the line. All right, so next question. The rise of AI is not only transforming how business operates, it's also reshaping the very nature of work. What skills will be most critical for the hospitality workforce in the next decade? We'll start with you, Jose. What skills do you think more critical?
Yeah, I feel like data literacy. I think at this point, what I've been learning in Hitmap for these several years, that companies have a lot of data that they don't know that they have, and no, I'm not talking about a data lake, right? I'm talking about I'm not talking about data. Like, they have a lot of information, and sometimes it takes 3 meetings, and I have papers and papers of notes of data that has been shared. And at the very beginning, they say, "Oh, we don't have any data," right? There's a lot of information, and what I would say is I feel like it's key to start cleaning that data, preparing that data for AI. AI needs to be fitted, right? Has to be and has to be fitted in the right way, right? If you put imagine this cooking robots, the Thermomix, or like if you put a bad vegetable, a bad fruit, it's gonna be bad result, right? Like even though the machine works perfectly, right? But if you're putting the wrong inputs, this is gonna have the wrong result, right? So I think at this point, I think data literacy inside organization is really important. Like trying to understand, okay, these are let's say, of course, sales is the easiest one, right? Like these are our sales for all our locations, for all our products. And this is how have been performing, right? And we're going to start learning from this, right? We're going to start a basic model that's going to be able to forecast something, right? And then we're going to start adding more complexity. But I feel like we have to start, and the sooner the better, right? Because the most that you can learn, as you mentioned in McDonald's, more accuracy you're going to have at the end, right? And it's worth to start right now, not wait, for 1 year or 2 years more, because like you're going to lose that time, and it's going to cost you more accuracy at the end of the day. So the return of investment of that, I think, is paid off.
That's awesome. And I think we're going to jump right to the last question for today, right? As we wrap up this insightful discussion, what's one actionable step an executive in this room can take in the next 6 months to meaningfully integrate AI into their strategy, and how they can lead with innovation and intention in this AI-powered world? So we're going to start with you.
I'll say my part quick so you guys can keep going, but I plead with you out there. If you're an executive management of a corporation, understand the capabilities of AI and what it can do for your company. Understand how, if you match that with your business goals, how it can help deliver that. And then please educate your management team so they can educate the employees so they understand all the way down the line, right? The feet on the street are where you're going to get the most information about doing the job. They need to understand what AI can do for them to help you achieve the bigger goals. And then if you are here from the university, I plead with you, look at how your curriculum can incorporate teaching your students how AI can help, not be replaced, so they are confident when they go to their jobs and they're interviewing, and they can say, I know how to utilize AI in the proper way that's going to help you achieve your goals better and faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, great comments. I would just say, I'm going to kind of mirror some of the stuff you said. Educate yourself. There is a tremendous amount of information out there. There's a lot of noise, but there are some pretty prominent organizations, consulting companies that are publishing a lot of information around AI. What it can do, what it can't do is just as important, right? Companies like McKinsey, Gartner, and it's free, right? You can go out there, Google McKinsey, go to their website. They've got literally reams of reports on what AI is today. It's really fascinating. They've been actually McKinsey, I'm mentioning them. If you go back, they've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years on AI intensive stuff, and go back and read some of the old stuff and what they thought it was going to be today and what it is actually today, and how those opinions have changed and formed. But the other thing I'm going to mimic what you were saying is, as you go through the journey, make sure that you are empowering your people with the knowledge of how their lives are going to be impacted directly, and that it isn't a mutually exclusive thing. We're getting to AI and you're out. You may have to upskill, you may have to learn some new things, but make sure that they understand that they're part of the picture. I've made some missteps that I shared with the group. Everybody thought they were going to lose their job. I'm like, no, that's not the case. So, but those are really the things. Educate yourself and just make sure that your associates are part of that journey every step of the way with you.
Yeah, cool. Pretty much just the same idea. Like, find the right partner. Your company has to continue doing, right. So you're rowing, but at the same time you have to start renewing this ship, right. So you cannot stop rowing. So you're not going to stop tomorrow and say, hey, everyone is going to look AI, right. So you have to continue. So I feel like my recommendation is find the right partner, someone that is aligned. It's going to be your co-pilot. I think the name from Microsoft is couldn't be better, right? You have a Ferrari there. Somebody has to drive that Ferrari with you, has to teach you how to do it. Find a your consultant company that can understand your culture, can create something cool with you that probably is going to be proprietary for you, not something commodity. That's going to be your approach to AI. Try to build some foundations there, but start right now and use your data wisely. You have a lot of data inside your organization.
So I'll wrap it up and then we'll open up the questions. But I think probably the best example for you all from a strategic point of view is, I'm going to quote Stephen Jobs. When Stephen Jobs was young, working in his garage, and he was thinking of building this computer and he had all these ideas in his head, he actually read an article from an engineering magazine that stated the greatest human invention from an engineering point of view was the bicycle. And the simple fact was that this simple engineering feat that used the crank, that helped conserve energy, allowed the human who could normally walk 20 miles a day to traverse 150 miles a day, depending how strong that human was. And very cheap to make and very effective. So he wanted to build the computer to be the bicycle of the human mind. What's happening now is a lot of companies, and you heard, are using the AI to be that computer, to be that bicycle. They're trying to figure out where to cost effectively use it, cost effectively deploy it, and at the end of the day, we live in the United States, it's a capitalistic society. How do we use it to generate a return on investment?